Well, no, it's the bullshit laws that we put around people. You can beat an addiction, you cannot beat a conviction, okay? Just be careful along those lines. If you're going to take a stand, make sure that you're taking some risk countermeasures, okay? Don't come have a marijuana demonstration on campus while you're carrying would be a good idea, okay? You ever see there's some videos on YouTube, the Australian pot farmer? You got to look this up. This guy's incredible, okay? He'll teach you how to grow, and he skirts the laws apparently in Australia, but how he's skirting any law, I don't know, because, I mean, he's right there doing a huge grow. He's doing it, he's interesting to listen to because he's talking about these kind of political things he learned in prison the first time, and why he's taking a stand, because he believes in it. So it's fascinating from the sense of just watching someone who is doing his thing, okay? And I can appreciate that level. I'm not suggesting you go on YouTube showing off your grow, okay? But be careful. Think in terms of countermeasures, okay? If you're going to be out front with this stuff, make sure you're also doing it safe, because, there are people out there who would like to, who have a very negative attitude about these things. Well, excellent question. It confused me in the sense that I found her comments to be hopeful. Like, all right, we're going to have a rational discussion. I didn't take that to mean that they were going to immediately, legalize drugs or something, but I thought we were heading towards a discussion, at least about, or an open examination of our prohibition laws. And then I think those comments from Obama, maybe a couple days later, were deliberately to dampen down any enthusiasm. I don't know any other way to take it, but to me they were very contradictory. LEAP, Jack Cole and Peter Chris, a group of ex-police officers. Jack Cole, I would encourage you to look his story up on the internet. There's some YouTube videos of him. He's really the driving force behind LEAP. He was an undercover narcotics officer at one time. He held the record for the biggest bust. He was with the Massachusetts State Police undercover, but actually did a bunch of work in New York City for a drug task force. A really cool police story in the fact that there are pictures of Jack while he was undercover, dressed up like this rogue biker, and it's really it's a kind of a badass story. It's much better than my story, being a substance abuse counselor, quite frankly. But I think there's a similarity in our stories in the sense that Jack had an epiphany, and a lot of it had to do about drug laws, a lot of it had to do about racism, because racism is very mixed up in this whole thing. The first person to call it a drug war was Richard Nixon. He's on tape in the Nixon Library talking about the explicit rationale for the drug war was to disenfranchise the black community further into basically a wedge issue that was explicitly political. Had nothing to do with harm reduction or helping people. It was a political maneuver. When you look at the testimony before Congress in the 1930s that made marijuana illegal, that was all about race. I mean, it's incredible to read it, quite frankly, that, I forget the guy's name. Yeah, so you know the story. I mean, he's literally talking about the idea that, marijuana makes colored people and Mexicans think they're as good as white people. Oh my God. So the drug war, in law, there's the idea of fruit of a poisonous tree. That if you were to get something in a drug seizure that came from a bad warrant, you couldn't use it. That's fruit from a poisonous tree. Well, the drug war itself is fruit from a poisonous tree. A racist legacy, and getting back to kind of your question about the origins, I think Jack, in talking with him, that was a big part. I mean, not only did he see a lot of the contradictions and the injustice of the drug war itself, but I think he also came to an understanding that a lot of it was explicitly racist, and he just didn't want to be a part of that. So at this point, there are hundreds of members, there are judges, there are active duty police officers, retired DEA agents or ex-DEA agents. There's a warden from a county jail in New Hampshire who is an active part of LEAP. So we're gaining momentum.
LEAP says they want to end drug prohibition, but does drug include anything from marijuana to, I don't know, acid and meth to crack? And
only those drugs where you want to solve the problem. Okay. Yeah, and this was, when I first joined LEAP, it's like I couldn't conceive, like well, you know, marijuana, I could see that, but cocaine and heroin. And I came to an understanding through really studying it that prohibition is the problem. We're not talking about a miracle cure. We're not talking about the idea that these drug problems are just going to disappear. We're talking about the fact that a certain number of people are always going to have problems, but prohibition makes them worse. And so, and now supporting that idea, my year on the streets of Miami taught me that getting drugs is more dangerous than taking drugs in many cases. It's a criminal lifestyle that is truly dangerous to drug users. And there was several long-term studies now in Sweden where they did programs where we're going to take junkies and we're going to give you prescriptions and we're going to basically give you your fix every day of heroin. And they did that with no expectation that people were ever going to clean up. They really saw these people as kind of lifelong addicts. They just wanted to get them out of the criminal lifestyle, the streets. They were actually quite surprised with when in like 3 years, a significant number of those people had cleaned up. Well, what had changed? They were out of the lifestyle now. They were out of the streets. They were out of the really, in many cases, toxic relationships and out of kind of the cycle of violence of the streets. And they, once they had a regular dose, they started functioning better. They were able to maintain much better. They got vocational training, education. They went back in the workforce. They got off drugs. Okay, so, and that wasn't even their expectation that this was going to happen, but it really supports the idea that prohibition is more problematic than the drugs themselves. Not, and again, I'm not promoting drug use. I want to be real clear with that. Some people just flat out should not use them. Again, go to any Skid Row and look at the alcohol that's laying out on the streets to see that, you know, just legalizing something doesn't make the problem go away. But we've learned with alcohol that we can live with a certain amount of problem, that it's better than the alternative. You know, I mean, we know that the biggest spike in violence in American history, until now, was Al Capone and the alcohol bootleggers. Okay, alcohol prohibition created a huge spike in violence and crime. Went away when alcohol prohibition went away. We would expect the same type of thing around drug prohibition. Not that drug problems are going to go away, but we can divert resources then to actual treatment.